Quick tut on how to make the Percy Jackson Olympians bead necklace. First, the materials that you're going to need are some clay. I'm using oven baked clay, but you can use whatever you want. Clay tools, which are optional, and some paint markers. I'm using the Shuttle Art 80 color dual tip brush pens, and whatever kind of string you want. Now grab your string and measure it out. I usually measure it to fall just above my chest, but it really depends on your preference and body build. Now that you've measured out your string, get out some clay. Get one big chunk and cut into smaller pieces. The sizes of the beads depend on how much clay you use, so it's up to you how big they should be. I try to make them all the same size, roughly, but it's, again, up to you. I also recommend using skewer sticks to make the holes in the beads, which can then also hold the beads once you're done with them. To make the bead spheres, I usually roll smaller pieces of clay into little worm shapes, then squish them closer together, and roll them on my left palm with my right palm. Here is a good example of me using skewer sticks to make holes in the beads. This is my process in action, and you can see me slowly adding more beads into the skewer. Eventually, I had to switch to a bigger stick since I was making so many beads. Here and there, I roll the beads around on my hand to somewhat smooth out the beads while on the stick. Right now, I'm looking at a reference of my past beads. Right here, you can see me rolling out some of my cut up pieces into beads. I then measure out how big my beads are when rolled up and see whether or not I need to trim or add to make them around the same size as the rest of the beads, so it looks a little bit more cohesive. Here are the 8 beads that I made that I wanted to put on my necklace. Here they all are laid out on a parchment paper sheet. Just make sure to have them spaced out some. My beads need to be set at 275 for 15 minutes, although this may vary depending on the clay. Here they all are cooked and ready to go. They're still a little warm, and I actually had to cook them for an extra 10 minutes, so it was really closer to 25 minutes instead of 15, due to the fact that they were not solid after 15 minutes. But again, I recommend checking your own clay and see how much you need to cook them for, depending on how thick they are. Right now, I'm just double checking that they're super solid and ready to be painted. Once I've decided that they are ready to be painted, I pull out this little cardboard thing that helps me hold them while painting them. Then I need to decide which bead is going to be painted as what, based on this handy-dandy guide that I found on Pinterest, and you can find so many more of different things. And I pull out my markers and I get to work. First up, we're going to paint Talia's pine tree. We're going to be using this lighter green first, and I kind of messed this bead up a little bit after, because the first lighter green wasn't all that bad, but then when I tried to do a cool effect with a darker green, I didn't really know what I was doing, and so I messed it up even more, but eventually we got it fixed, and it looks even better now. Alrighty, that is our first bead strung on our string. The next bead we have is the Battle of Manhattan bead, so I'm just going to be drawing the Empire State Building. Here I was deciding what color should be used for the main Empire State Building base, and I decided on the second color because the first one was way too light. I'm being very careful here because if I mess up even just a little bit, it's going to take forever to fix. Here, I just wanted to show you that you can choose between having a black outline or a darker gray outline. I personally chose the darker gray outline for this one because when I did my previous set of beads, I used a black outline and I didn't really like it because I thought it was too harsh. But again, it is really up to the person painting. Again, I'm being really, really careful because, again, if I mess up even one thing, it's going to take forever to fix it. Now I got out my white paint marker, and I'm going to use this for the windows, but you can also use a lighter gray for this. I just personally chose a white because I just thought it would pop a little better. Alrighty, that is our second bead strung on the string. Next up, we have Percy's trident. So first off, when I'm doing a bead that is like fully one color, I always usually start off with putting like color inside of the holes because I just find it very satisfying to know that they are like fully colored inside and outside. So right now I'm just fully coloring it in all black because that's what my reference photo said. Then I'm going to put a little white trident first, and because although it is a blue trident that represents Percy, when I tried doing a blue trident just blue on its own, it looked very muddy and I didn't really like it. And so I'm going to do white first, and then I'm going to do a bit of a green-blue look. I'm being very careful here because I don't want to go over the white lines. In a few seconds, you're going to see a comparison between the muddy and non-muddy trident, and you're going to see why I like the non-muddy one more. Alrighty, we finally have our third bead after a whole lot of work going on to our string of beads. Next up, you're going to see Daedalus's Labyrinth, but all finished because I was like, I have to look at the reference picture if I'm going to get this done. And I could not record my process while also looking at the reference picture. But you can see my trial and error all over my hands. Finally, we will see our fourth bead going onto the string. Next up, we have Hera's Cage. I chose this bead for Hera's Cage due to the fact that it's so much more slimmer, and that way I don't have to fit my bigger designs onto smaller beads. I had a lot of problems that I messed up on Hera's Cage. For one, I really don't like how I did the cage lines in this. It's just too messy. And then I also didn't really like how the green went on to the cage, and it honestly became really muddy, so I had to redo it a few times. Here we have the finished project where I finally got the hang of it, and it is now going onto the string to join the rest of the beads as our fifth bead. Next up, we have the Camps United bead. Again, this is based off of a reference photo, and this is my first bead, which I honestly like it and don't like it for many reasons. For one, I feel like the lines on both of these beads are really crisp, and I'm really proud of that. But I didn't really like how on the first bead, the SBQR was not really golden and more white because of the reference photo that I had. It didn't look very yellow or golden to me, so I thought it was whiter than it was golden. So on this one, I fixed that, and it is now a much brighter yellow gold. Here and there, you will see me wiping my markers on a paper beside me because the markers can get very muddy because I'm super impatient and want to get things done almost immediately as soon as I start them. So I don't usually wait for my paint to dry all that well, so my markers get muddy and they get muddy fast. Right now, I'm just doing and redoing the SPQR because I kept messing up the P, and it didn't look like a P, or the Q didn't look like a Q, or the R didn't look like an R. The S was really good the entire time, but you can't really mess up an S. One of the hardest parts of the SPQR was not only the letters, but also the little extra details, because they seemed so faint and you could barely see them. I just could not get the hang of it almost at all. But eventually I got it done and it is over with now, but I still feel like I could improve it a little bit more. So I might go back at some point and paint it a little bit more yellow, but we'll see. Now our Camps Combined SPQR bead is finally done, and it can join the rest of our beads on the string as our sixth bead. Up next, we have the Golden Fleece bead, which again, I completed off camera because I needed to look at my reference picture just like I did with the Daedalus's Maze. So it is joining as our seventh bead on the bead necklace. And finally, we are finishing this with the Doors of Death. This one was a little bit more complicated than the rest, but again, I still think that Daedalus's Maze bead was the hardest bead. Even though this one had to be painted all the way around with black, just like Percy's bead, I had to put little red specks here and there, which became really annoying when I realized that the red specks were fading after putting them on and becoming really muddy. So I went over them a few times, but I think eventually I was happy with it because I certainly like it now. It was very hard because I had to draw the doors. It took very long to complete, so it was quite annoying, but I still am glad that I did it. But we are finally done with the Doors of Death, and it is our eighth and last bead to go on the necklace. This is the finished piece, and I'm just reorientating the beads to make sure that all the patterns are showing. But I'm really proud of this, and I'm really glad that I got to make this multiple times, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and have fun making your own. Peace out.